Hi, this is Reverend Dr. Nadine Rosechild-Sullivan, and I would like to come to you to wish you happy Halloween. It is October 31st, 2020. Also, happy All Souls Day. Tomorrow, happy All Saints Day. And if you celebrate in this way, then a merry and a sacred Samhain today. It is also the second full moon in the month of October 2020, so it's a blue moon, a full moon today on this day, Samhain or Halloween. I want to talk for a moment about our ancestors and our descendants. I have been teaching my students recently about the history of the fight for the vote in the United States of America. We've been looking at the many ways in which many people groups have had their votes suppressed across time, and we've also been looking at some of the voter suppression that has been actively engaged in regard to our election coming this Tuesday. And as I was on one of the calls with one of the Zoom teaching sessions with my students, I said to my students, we owe our ancestors who fought for the vote. We owe them voting this year, if at all humanly possible. And we owed thinking our way through the vote and figuring it out how to bring it about. We all needed to plan our vote in various ways. And if you have not voted yet, let me repeat the advice that is coming from the best sources that it is too late to put it in the mailbox, in a regular postal mailbox, and that you should deliver your ballot in person. If you got a mail-in ballot, you should now take it by hand in person to put it in a duly authorized ballot box of your state, or go in person to vote. Some places you can go and have your mail-in ballot spoiled if you still have it in your hand and vote in person, or vote provisionally if you never got it, but to vote. And so I was saying that we owe it to the ancestors. Recently I've spoken of women's fight for the vote, of the 72-year struggle for women in the United States to gain the right to vote, to come up to the 19th Amendment, which was finally ratified and added to the Constitution in 1920, after a fight that began at least in 1848. I've also spoken about the fight for the Equal Rights Amendment, which was ratified finally this past January, and which has been stopped from being added to the US Constitution. The archivist should simply have added it after its final ratification, and instead, the Justice Department, under the current sitting president, stopped it, under William Barr, stopped it from being added. And the fight for that is ongoing, that women should have equal rights in the United States. I've also been showing my students a number of films that have to do with the fight that African American peoples in the United States have had to engage in for the fight for the vote. Something about that vote, something about your ballot matters intensely, so much so that sometimes those in power fight to keep you from exercising your right to vote. So think about that. Anything that would be fought so intensely, anything in which there would be people who would gerrymander districts to try to take away your vote, or purge the voter rolls to try to take away your vote, or take out all of the mail, or begin to unscrew mailboxes from the curb, or the governor of Texas, who made sure there was only one ballot box per county. Texas is a big state. Those counties are big. One ballot box in an entire county of Texas, in every county in Texas, only one ballot box. This is voter suppression. So you think about, why would somebody try so hard to suppress your vote? Why would somebody do things? My own city of Philadelphia, many of the automatic mail sorting machines were removed in July. My own mail has been really slow and really sparse since July. Changes that were made to try to make it impossible to vote by mail in the middle of this pandemic. And so I was telling my students, we owe the ancestors. And one of my students very wisely responded, we owe our descendants. We do owe our descendants, as those who have inherited a hard fought for, hard defended democracy. Not only for those who fought for the right to vote, but those who have fought to defend liberty in our wars, those who have fought for us at all different levels of society. We owe them. We owe them, and we owe our children, and our children's children, and our children's children's children, to the 10th generation, should the human race get itself together and not destroy this planet, should there be 10 more generations. But we owe however many there are, and we owe them this democracy intact. So we do owe them our vote. We owe them our fighting to vote. We owe them standing in line if we have to, if at all possible. If you weren't able to vote early or to vote by mail, if that's what it's come to and you're able, then we do owe both the ancestors and the descendants our vote. But as we think also about this particular day, in which it is believed that the veil between the worlds grows thinner, that there is something about October and Halloween, something about Samhain, something about All Souls Day, something about this time and this space each year, this season, and this part of this season, that makes it so that those that have passed over are closer, or that we're more able to perceive them, or that there's something there. I've been to places where Samhain was being celebrated, and the way it was being celebrated was we all brought pictures of our departed loved ones, of parents, grandparents, those that we missed, those that we'd lost. We brought those pictures with us to this, church setting, and lit candles and told stories about those who had gone on before. And I have lost both my parents and all the grandparents that I knew and great grandparents across time. I've also had the misfortune of losing one child. So we have people and a twin brother. We have people on the other side. If you're a person of faith, if you're a person who believes there might be an afterlife or there is an afterlife of some kind, then we have those people on the other side. And this is a good time of year to think about them, to bring them to mind, to recount their stories, to remember what their lives were like and what our lives were like when we had them with us. And there are those we've lost as a nation. Just in the past year or so, we have lost some giants. We lost John McCain not too long ago. We lost Elijah Cummings, a great man, a man who talked about when we're dancing with the angels, we'll want to know we did all we could to preserve this democracy for our children's children's children. We also, just this summer, we lost a lion of a man when we lost John Lewis, Representative John Lewis, who began his life as a sharecropper's son, who went on and fought as a 17-year-old, who joined even before that, but by the age of 17, clearly engaged in fighting for civil rights with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, suffered a fractured skull, who was arrested some 40 times in his life, and who also spent 30-some years in the U.S. House of Representatives fighting for rights, fighting for voting rights, fighting to maintain those rights. And the Voting Rights Act has been stripped of its teeth. Part of the reason we're experiencing so much voter suppression right now is because of what was done to the Voting Rights Act in Shelby County versus Holder. That can be turned back again. And we have a House of Representatives that has already passed a John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and that with a Senate that would agree, that would allow it to come to the floor, to be voted upon, that it could be turned back, that we could restore and reestablish the rights of all Americans to vote without suppression, without things that keep us from the ballot, without things that make it tougher, in ways where all of our votes count. I would argue tonight that we also need to get rid of the Electoral College, that we need to establish the right of each citizen to have one vote and to have that one vote count in equal weight with all other citizens. And so there's John Lewis. We have also lost very, very recently Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And tonight, underneath all this other paraphernalia, I am also wearing my I Dissent collar. And I dissent to the voter suppression that has been ongoing in our nation. And tonight, I want us to invoke the spirits of the greats that have gone before us. Maybe your parents and grandparents, your loved ones, maybe mine, and also to invoke in this moment the greats of our nation, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and John Lewis and Elijah Cummings and the other greats who have gone on before, all the heroes of all of our rights movements, the women who have gone on before, the Alice Pauls and the Lucy Burns, the great women who have gone on before us, the Sojourner Truths, and so many women across time who fought for our rights, the Fannie Lou Hamers and the Rosa Parks, but also those whose names we don't even know, great women across time who fought for our rights as Americans, to have our voice heard, to be equal members of our societies, those who have fought for the rights of immigrants, those who have fought for the rights of the disabled, those who have fought for all the ways in which we've experienced discrimination, who have fought to turn that around and to turn that back and to undo it. And so we invoke those on the other side who believe in our democracy tonight, and we invite them into this prayer space, calling on those who, as the Bible would say, look down upon us like a great cloud of witnesses, cheering us on as we run this race, as we wait in line to cast our ballots, as we go hours early and take our lawn chairs and take our lunches with us because we don't know what that wait will be like, as we go with our umbrellas and our gloves, as we go with our coats, as we go in whatever way the climate is where we're at, that we're facing to vote now. There are so many that have gone on before us, that have wished us well and that have fought and given their life and their life's blood for us and for our goals and for our forward motion. And we sit here tonight not only in the midst of this moment of voting, fighting to vote amidst voter suppression, but we also sit here tonight in the middle of a pandemic that continues to rage in our land. The unfortunate news is that we're increasing now at greater rates than ever, that our number of new cases per day is hitting numbers like 90,000 or almost 90,000, and that Americans are dying at about the rate of 1,000 a day now. This is really awful news, and with it is the fact that our low since July has been only as low as the height of July, and we've been climbing ever since, and our numbers are climbing. Tonight, as we sit here, 9,341,490, so almost 9,400,000 Americans have been diagnosed positive with COVID in these 8 months. And we, according to NCOV 2019, are at 235,483 souls who have crossed over due to this pandemic. And we know that no matter what anyone is saying on the news or elsewhere, that this is actually an undercount, because we know many, many Americans could not get tests, especially for the first months and months, like half at least or more of the months that we've been involved in this pandemic. It was nearly impossible to get tested, and certainly not on demand. So we know that this is an undercount both for cases and for deaths attributed to COVID, not an overcount. Also, this globe that we're sitting on right now has had 1,198,000 deaths and 46,200,000 cases of COVID. And so as we begin to prepare to pray today, we are inviting in, however, whatever you may conceive of divinity or deity or source to be, spirit, the universe, God, however you perceive of wherever we come from, whatever created us, wherever we're going to, wherever we return, as we prepare to invoke God, source, the universe, we also call on those who have gone on before us, those who fought for our lives, for our rights, those who raised us well, those who loved us, those who set our feet on a good path, whomever you may have had in your life who was kind or attentive or loving, a friend's parent, a kind teacher, whomever they may have been there for you across your space of time. We call on them today, tonight. We also call at this moment in time. We also call on the greats of our land, all the leaders of all the movements, the Ida B. Wells, the Susan B. Anthonys, everyone who has gone on before us, the Elizabeth Cady Stantons, even the Henry David Thoreaus who wrote about civil disobedience. We call on our greats to be there, to lift us up, the Bayard Rustins, the Martin Luther Kings, and the ones whose names we don't know. We call upon our greats, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, John Lewis, Elijah Cummings, John McCain, to be with us today as we visualize and as we pray for our nation. Taking just a moment, whatever you perceive this to be, allow yourself to begin to imagine a world in which corruption is removed from politics. With me, if you'll close your eyes and use your visualization powers, see a nation where every elected and appointed leader and representative, every official, from the executive branch through the legislative branch, through the judiciary, down through from the federal to the state to the regional and local levels, just seeing every official holding office or holding power being a true, honest, honorable servant of the people. We call Spirit of Grace. We call for leaders who serve the people, in our case, the American people, around the globe, leaders who serve their people, their nations. We call out Spirit of Grace for truth and justice to reign supreme. We call for those who are corrupt, those who steal, those who lie and are dishonest to be removed from power, not for ideological reasons, but because their corruption finds them out. We call for those who will lead us forward into controlling the pandemic, into bringing it under, into causing us to walk in such a place where we are able to return to somewhat more normal lives. We call for your safety and your protection on our families and our loved ones across these next months of fall and winter, across the season of flus and colds, across this time when the flu season meets COVID, which has not abated but has increased, and we ask you to bring us safely to the other side. Each of us now is picturing those we love and need most, picturing our children, our grandchildren, our parents, our siblings, nieces, nephews, cousins, relatives of all sorts, aunts and uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents, picturing them all kept safe and well. We picture all of us doing the best we can, but we also picture, as we affirm the science and we walk in that truth, we ask for your supernatural help as well, for those we love and for our friends, for our companions in this journey, for our co-workers. I pray also for my students and for my clients of my ministry. I pray for all those round about us. We pray for our neighbors and our neighborhoods, for our townships and our cities, for our states and counties. We pray for deliverance, for peace, for safety. And we see in this space, we see this election bringing absolutely to power those who stand for democracy, for a non-suppressed vote, who affirm voting rights, who would open that space, who would undo that which took the teeth out of the Voting Rights Act, who would reinstate it, who would make changes in policing. We call for those. We call for those to come into office to serve us, who would be kind and just to those seeking asylum in our nation, and make a real path to citizenship for those who come here, both those who are brought here as children and those who come themselves, that there would be the space in the American heart and the American soul for a working asylum system and a working immigration system, for the changes that we need, for true bipartisanship, for a shift and a change in the ways that the Senate is run, so that the bills that have come up can come up to the floor of the Senate and be heard and voted upon. We call for all the shifts and the changes we need. And in this space, we see peace and justice through this election. Spirit of grace, we most fervently pray for this Tuesday, for the days between now and Tuesday, and for the days and weeks afterwards. As this election drama plays out, we pray for peace, for safety, for peace and safety for all of us, for all Americans. We pray that against violence, we ask in the name of all that is holy, and in the name of our greatest ideals, that each of us is safe as we vote, as we live, as we move about, as we have our being in these days and these weeks. And we thank you for bringing us to the other side in all ways. And we thank you most sincerely for being with us. We call upon that great cloud of witnesses to bring forth whatever and to bring through whatever protection they may have to give us. And Spirit of grace, God of all that is, we ask you to be with us and to bring me and mine and all of you and yours through to the other side, still embodied, still strong, healthy and well, fully recovered or kept from the virus entirely. We pray and we believe that we receive, that we dwell in the secret place of the Most High, that we abide under the shadow of the Almighty. We believe the plague does not come nigh our dwelling, and even as we exercise wisdom in regard to science and follow the principles of virology, even as we wear our masks and wash our hands and use Purell and stay physically distant, we thank you, Spirit of Grace, for keeping us from all we cannot control and bringing us safely to the other side, so that the other side we may say that we are every whit whole, embodied, strong and well, delivered. And so today, just with me, release your faith, visualize and see that after this election, that we have in January a government that is not corrupt, that is not stealing money and power, but is instead dedicated to serving the people. The government of, by, and for the people, not perish from the earth. We pray also that continued religious freedom, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press remain with us all the years of our lives and those of our children's children's children. We lift up the environment. We thank you for your deliverance. So as you simply take a moment, visualize with me that all those who are corrupt are swept off the stage of human history. See with me a wave that removes those whose primary commitment is not to the ideals of our nation and the people of our nation, and see our nation healed. See an end to all forms of injustice and forward motion in the project of full egalitarian democracy. Thank you for your attentiveness, and again, happy Halloween, a blessed Samhain. Tonight's a good night to look at pictures of your ancestors, to pull out the photo albums or call them up on your phone, to remember those who have loved you, and to release your faith that we will make it through this time, and only at the end of full, rich lives will we rejoin them on the other side. I see you and yours making it through. I thank you for agreeing with me that me and mine also make it through, and agreeing with me, we all make it through in a democracy. Vote. Vote your civil rights and mine. Vote against corruption. Vote for as much integrity in government as is possible. And after the election, rise up to continue the work of the project of democracy, which falls to each of us. Happy October 31st.